Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with today's FNM Primer, or FNM Spotlight. Today is going to be Modern at my local game store, and I think I'm going to sleeve up an oldie but a goodie, being a Tooth and Nail. Now, this was a suggestion by a fan. I can't remember the name, so I know it was months ago, but they suggested when Oath of Nissa came out that I tried in Tooth and Nail. So I'm going to do that. In fact, I've actually played an entire video series for not this week, but next week's Playing on a Budget. So you'll get to see some matchups with this, and I'll also let you know how well this performs at my local FNM. So what this deck tries to do is get out the villain from Theros block and the villain from the first Eldrazi block, Emrakul and Xenagos teaming up to create 30 damage, haste damage off of a Tooth and Nail. So you go and grab off of Tooth and Nail, you get Xenagos and Emrakul because you entwine this, search your library for 2 creature cards, put them onto the battlefield. Xenagos gives Emrakul haste, and Emrakul swings in for 30-30 and makes them destroy 6 permanents. So that is the whole idea behind the deck. So everything in this deck is meant to get out that combo as quickly as possible. So we have the 4 Arbor Elves and Voyaging Satyrs that untap Utopia Sprawls and Overgrowths. We also have Garruk Wildspeaker, which all of these can be tutored up with Oath of Nissa, or at least look to the top 3 cards. It's another way to actually find Nykthos, Shrine of Nyx, too. So this is the green version of sort of like, I don't know, Ponder for green. It also is an enchantment that stays out and gives you another devotion for Nykthos, Shrine of Nyx. So I also think that Courser is very powerful in this deck to try to find Nykthos, Shrine of Nyx. I'm running 4 of. This can easily be changed. This is one of the flex slots in the deck. We have the 2 Primal Commands, and I call it the Eternal Witness lock. If you can ramp out to an early Primal Command, you can actually put a non-creature permanent back on top of their library, which is usually going to be a land, and then tutor up another Eternal Witness, and then the Eternal Witness can get back a Primal Command, and it almost like time walks them. So it's almost like take an extra turn after this one, and you can lock them for at least 3 times in a row, and then hopefully by then you'll be able to find what you need. If you have a Courser out, you can be swinging in for damage. If you have a Garruk out, he can be ticking up. And Garruk is he's your alternate win condition in this deck. This card can just win the game. Let me say that again. So a lot of times just after 1 turn of untapping 2 lands, he's up to 4, and you can give all your creatures +3/+3 and trample. So I've had games where I've had like 2 Arbor Elves out, 2 Eternal Witnesses out, and like a Voyaging Satyr, and they give them all +3/+3 and trample, just won the game that way. In fact, that happens a lot. So much that I'm actually thinking about creating a deck with Garruk Wildspeaker. I had a deck back in the day, way back in Modern day, actually in Standard. It's a very powerful deck I called Dorkblade. In fact, it was the very first video series I ever did for my YouTube channel. Now, I had some copyrighted music on there, so I had to take it down because I just didn't know the terms of YouTube at the time. You know, I probably used something trendy back then as my intro with some copyrighted music. So I took the videos down just so they wouldn't get flagged and I wouldn't have that mess on YouTube. I wish they were still up there because it was my very first try at YouTube back during, man, this was Scars and Mirrodin and wow, I've been around that long. Geez, I'm old. Anyway, it was Scars. I think at the very end of Scars and Innistrad blocks, and what it did is it used, I believe it was Llanowar Elves at the time. I don't think Elvish Mystic quite existed. So Llanowar Elves, Birds of Paradise, and Avacyn Pilgrim to get out swords as quickly as possible. So I called it Dorkblade because you're trying to hook up a blade to a dork. Now with this deck we actually have Arbor Elf. You would have Noble Hierarch, Arbor Elf. What else? Birds of Paradise would be really good. And you could even go Elvish Mystic and Llanowar Elf. So we'd have tons of ways to get a first turn dork out and then a second turn blade. I actually used Heroes of Bladehold in that deck as well because it was a very powerful card to have out on turn 3 as well, or turn 2. There's a way I could get out turn 2 with one of my first decks ever. Actually, the creation of Rogue Deck Builder was a deck that tried to cheat out a turn 2 Hero of Bladehold. I've talked about the stories of that plenty of times in my past videos. You can maybe go find that somewhere. If someone finds it, they can link it in the description, where I talk about making a person slam in his chair and basically throw his cards at Grand Prix Salt Lake back in like 2012. And that was the start of Rogue Deck Builder, because he made a comment saying, have fun going 2 and or losing your next round, it was in a grinder with your crappy rogue deck. And when he said rogue deck, that is when it kind of hit with me, and I went home and created Rogue Deck Builder. And it took a while for me to actually get the channel going, but yeah, that was, I think if you go back in my YouTube channel, it says created in March of 2012 or something like that. That was right after the Grand Prix. And then I didn't do anything on my YouTube channel for like a whole year. So anyway, back to this deck. We have on the sideboard there, what happens is if you go up against a deck where the combo is terrible, is you just side the combo out. Bring in some more value cards like Garruk, Primal Hunter, Eidolon of Blossoms, because you have so many enchantments in this deck. You have the Utopia Sprawl, the Oath of Nissa, so right here's your enchantments, which is 4, 8, 12, 16, and then the Eidolon of Blossoms make it 18, so you're going to be drawing through your deck quite a bit to find what you need. I actually thought about a Herald of the Pantheon in here. It would reduce the cost of coursers, reduce the cost of overgrowths, but really not much else after that. And then you'd probably want to go into like Verdant Havens or something weird after that. If there's another like overgrowth card. I think there's a 4 mana overgrowth. I'm not quite sure. Anyways, we have Blood Moons, which is also an enchantment that can hit off Eidolon in the sideboard. Blood Moon is just a card that can shut down plenty of these decks that are very greedy on their mana base. Spellskite's really in here for Infect and Bogles. Those are annoying decks, so you want a Spellskite as a way to at least have any sort of play against them. You can also, if Infect is really, really big, you can put Malera, and then you can tutor Malera up with quite easily with like a Primal Command. I've actually had Malera in here with Court of Callings in the past, and that way I can chord pretty quickly into a Malera. Chord's actually not bad in this deck whatsoever, because you can use the Arbor Elf and the Voyaging Satyrs in conjunction with Utopia Sprawls and Overgrowth very, very quickly to at least get like a Spellskite or a Scavenging Ooze. Like, it's still a card that Court of Calling I could easily put in here. So I might actually throw a Chord in. I might mess with it that way, because you can tutor up like Acidic Slime. You can also put a Reclamation Sage in the sideboard. And yeah, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll try that with that. Instead of the Eidolon of Blossoms, just put in a couple chords and then have this like toolbox. 1 Scavenging Ooze, 1 Spellskite, 1 I don't, they're even almost main boardable instead of 2 Coursers of Kruphixes if I could fit them in. It's just one of those things I don't know if I like the chord strategy. If you're worried about affinity, you can still go with the Ancient Grudges. Ancient Grudges are great. We do have 1 hate card versus affinity, which is Creeping Corrosion. Reclamation Sage again is good. I like Beast Withins in this deck because they give you like this land destruction feel, and I've actually had a Beast Within in the main board at times, because giving your opponent a 3/3 isn't terrible, especially with Garruk being able to put 3/3s out. But I just wanted to fit these Coursers and these Eidolons in this deck. So this deck list might change up a little bit. This is the one I previously ran for playing on a budget. Well, it's going to be in a week. Next Friday actually is when it will come out. But it did quite well. I'll just, spoiler alert there, it did quite well. So just go and check out that series for some gameplay. And again, I might switch it up. I'm thinking about putting 2 Court of Callings in here. Spellskite, a Spellskite, a Scavenging Ooze in main board, and then we have a Reclamation Sage I'll bring in the sideboard. And then just 1 Courser main board is all. But Coursers are just extremely good right now in the metagame versus the hyper-aggressive decks. It's great versus Goblins. It's decent versus like Jund. It can help you get card advantage off of that, and help. It's a body that stays alive from lightning bolts and gives you that bit of life per turn, which is actually very significant, and it still is something that has the 2 converted mana costs. Now, Wistful Selkie actually gives you 3, which is another thing you could tutor up with a Court of Calling. Almost every scenario I've rather had an Eternal Witness than a Wistful Selkie, because the 1 Devotion doesn't really matter as much as a card from your graveyard. They're both 2s, 2 powers, and this one is just a lot. Eternal Witness is a lot easier to like set up what you need from your graveyard than just randomly draw a card. So that's why I don't use Wistful Selkie in this type of deck. Other people use Primeval Titan. That's of course a very decent strategy, but a lot of room with this deck to innovate. But basically the main part of this deck is going to stay pretty consistent with the Garruks and the Voyaging Satyrs and the Arbor Elves. And then after that, you're free to customize these other slots that I use, like Courser of Kruphix in, and of course the sideboard. Anyway, this is what I'm going to run. I'll let you know how well it does at my local metagame, my local FNM. This is Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.